I'd like to start off with a little thank you for coming, because it's important to me, this particular event, because I am passionate about motorcycling. So I really appreciate all the people that have come and are dedicated to this aspect. So we all share a vision, we share a passion, and that we have a destination in mind. And our destination that we share here is Vision Zero, that we have 0 deaths by 2050. But any motorcyclist will tell you that it's not about the destination, it's about the journey as well. And so we need to understand, in order to know where we're going, it's worthwhile to know where we've been. So my chat will be about the history of our licensing and our Safer People's perspective over the 40 years and where we've come in that time. So I'm going to dive back in history. So in terms of evidence-based policy, we need to go back to the 80s. The 80s, following a massive increase in bike registration and ownership, and baby boomers all getting old enough to get a licence, it was a horrific time for motorcycling. You can see there in the 1982, where this data snapshot was taken, we had just on 130,000 registered motorcycles, but we had over 200 fatalities in that year. And the scary thing is that, a good chunk of those, the majority of those, were learner licence holders. They were 12% of them. And if you compare that to the driver fatality at the time, learner drivers were 0.6% of fatalities. So it was an alarming time, and it was a time that the government needed to do something and chose to. So in 1984, New South Wales Parliament conducted Stay Safe 3, which was an investigation into motorcycle road trauma. It was probably one of the most comprehensive pieces of work done to date, and it certainly stands as a testimony to evidence-based research and looking at what's going on worldwide. The chair, Michael Knight, even went out and learnt to ride a motorcycle in order to understand the issue. So it was looked at overseas best practice, it looked at the fatality data. The data on the previous slide, in fact, comes from that report. And it really showed that there was an emerging problem that needed to be addressed, particularly at learner level. The recommendations, there were 35 in all, and I'd strongly suggest that you actually look at that report. The recommendations really aimed to try and fix the problem in the learner area. And back in those days, you could get your permit and be on your permit indefinitely. You just kept renewing it, paying more money. And on a permit, you were not restricted to capacity of bike. Like many people, I learned to ride when the bike shop dropped the bike off at my house, and I rode round and round the block of my parents' place at Hornsby. And that was what was the only way to learn to ride a motorcycle. So the Stay Safe recommendations were so comprehensive. In fact, they laid the policy foundation for our next 20 years of work, because it was very in-depth and comprehensive, and it led to, in 91, So in 1991, New South Wales government commenced a 12-month trial, which led in 92 the official launch of the rider training scheme. Now, the rider training scheme, we need to put that in the context again. It really was about trying to get that learner into a safe place to learn. The learner course was really about understanding how to make a bike stop, go and turn, and that was it. It was designed as a try before you buy scheme. So by that, there was the first thing you did was do training. There was no prerequisites to that. You're able to just go along. It was subsidised to try and reduce the chance of unlicensed riding because of a barrier. And it really, bike and everything was provided. So people could actually go see if it was something they liked, and if not, give it up. And still today, 60% of people do the L's and don't progress. So there are people that look at it and go, not for me. And I think that's actually a really important function of that. It also then stepped it up and had a training regime that included assessments and also an on-road component at the provisional level. So after having a learner licence for 3 months, you came back and did that second level training. One of the key things there was the fact that it actually brought in a learner licence that had a 6-month validity, and that stopped the whole cycle of people just renewing permits and being able to just keep riding forever, essentially undetected and unaffected by any deterrents that were in the system. You'll see there it took 91 to 94 to roll out. That wasn't because we're slow, it was actually because it was a deliberate staged approach so as that the industry, which was a fledgling industry, could build up. There were not many providers and really it needed to be rolled out progressively. After the scheme was rolled out, there was a lot of enhancements during the 2000s. And this is more modern time and it's probably a lot more relevant. 2002, we saw the introduction of LAMs. That's where learners are restricted to low-powered, smaller capacity bikes. That scheme that we piloted in 2002 to 2004 actually was picked up Australia-wide, so New South Wales led the field there. We also introduced a merit points for learners. Prior to that, if you had 5 crosses against your name, it came to the attention of our licensing unit and they might do something. But we actually formalised that system. I want to briefly mention that it says 2006 there, but it was a long piece of work where we aligned the educational outcomes of the learner training program, the P program, with all our other materials. So the handbook, motorcycle handbook, was actually following this, picked up by every state in Australia except Victoria, because it was such a leap forward in terms of educational material. It covered roadcraft and the like. The zero tolerance on speeding that was introduced in 2007, that picked up cars and bikes. Again, that was for all novice Ls and Ps, and it was really setting the ground rules of a tough approach on people, high risk behaviour in that early stages. In 2009, following the summit that Sean was talking about, we rolled out the GLS. Graduated licensing scheme for motorcyclists. It's a lot more than just putting on a P2 phase. There was a lot of very delicate policy changes made during that time. We did introduce the P2 phase, so learners did have to go through learners, then P1, then P2s like cars. But what we did do is specifically tailor the tenure and licensing durations to suit motorcyclists. We increased it to 12 months to give them a little bit more practice on their Ls, but we kept that minimum 3 month tenure, and we made it so every single person had to do that minimum 3 months on Ls. Previously to the GLS in 2009, you had a situation where if you're over 30 with a gold licence, you could just do your Ls, do your Ps the next day and then go unrestricted. And that was really problematic because you essentially had a person with a licence 3 days buying a 1000cc bike. We fixed a lot of those issues and brought us to what we see today, ongoing development of the program, where we're now we're continuing our work, we're looking at there's been another StateSafe inquiry. You'll see that yellow and black document there. We did an in-depth analysis of our GLS, thanks to Teresa Senseric and Co. And then we've also been looking at elements such as the Austroads review of LAMs and, as Sean mentioned, international work as well. So we're continuing that evidence-based research and we're continuing doing that work. Thank you for your time.